on the one hand, it's great to have the writer of the book write the screenplay as well. But at any point, were you afraid that you were too close to the material or too close to the characters to really be, to ruthlessly condense it for the screen? Yeah.
There were times when I think I was probably too ruthless. I was definitely asked to put things back that I'd cut. And I'd started as a screenwriter before I was a novelist, so I knew some things that I loved just wouldn't work on screen. But inevitably, especially when it's all finished, you think, God, I wonder what someone else would have done with that scene. I wonder how someone else would have solved that problem. But the flip side of that is, I feel very possessive of this book. I'm very proud of this book, and I did want to have as much control as you can have with a movie. A movie is much more collaborative. With a novel, you're absolutely in charge. With a movie, quite rightly, you have to listen to other people.
Well, on that note, were you around on the set a lot, kind of sitting there taking note of what was happening, and were you sitting there kind of silently biting on your finger, kind of going, no, don't do it that way?
I was on set a lot to begin with, and then it was a combination of myself feeling quite confident about the way it was going, and also it just being so boring and repetitive, and we didn't really have the kind of schedule where you could improvise or change things. It was quite tough to get such a wide-ranging film shot in the time we had. So I gradually sort of withdrew, but there were very few moments where I threw my hands up and thought, no, that's not right at all. Very few. In fact, I think it's a pretty close, faithful adaptation.
Were you there for the famous chemistry read between Jim and Anne? I mean, I'm hearing a lot about this. And
yes.
It sounds hilarious.
No, I wasn't there for it. I saw the tapes, and it did instantly seem like the right pairing, because Jim has a kind of youth and boyishness and but also a charm which Dexter absolutely needed. He has a slight tendency to be annoying and selfish and self-absorbed, and Jim completely overcame that, and you could see it was entirely plausible that these two people could be great friends.
I'm wondering, did you have any kind of favourite romantic movies or favourite screenplays that you had in mind when you're writing any screenplay, but writing this one in particular?
I always come back to the same 3 or 4, which are my favourite films. I love Billy Wilder's The Apartment. I think that's a supreme romantic comedy in that it gives you what you want from a romantic comedy without being cliched or sentimental. I love Annie Hall. I watch Annie Hall 3-4 times a year, I'm sure. I think it's so smart and funny, and again, it's a romantic comedy without the cliches. And I love a lot of golden age 30s, 40s Hollywood romantic comedies like Bringing Up Baby and The Philadelphia Story, which have a kind of wit and style and intelligence that I don't think you find that often in rom-com today. Terrible phrase. So that's the era I always go back to. And my favourite play is Much Ado About Nothing. And certainly I had Beatrice and Benedict in mind when I was writing this. Those characters who clearly belong together, but who are always sparking off each other, always fighting each other.
I've read that you've been so busy with One Day between writing the screenplay, do the promotion and everything, that you haven't gone around to writing a new book yet. And I suppose you're probably just going to run out of the room screaming when I ask this now. But I mean, have you an idea, or are you working on something at the moment?
I'm making notes. At the moment, I'm working on a screenplay of Great Expectations, which we're shooting in October. But then I need to be serious about writing fiction, because I'm very proud of One Day, but I finished writing it about 2.5 years ago, and I really should have moved on to something else. What's happened with One Day has been brilliant, but it feels as if certain areas have been closed down now. I don't think the next story will be a straightforward love story. I don't want to write about the 80s or the 90s. I don't want to do a kind of the next book needs to be different, but it mustn't be too different. So you suddenly find yourself becoming very self-conscious and wary about what you write next. But that's okay. I mean, I've been incredibly lucky, so it'd be very churlish to complain about that.
You're not feeling any kind of difficult second album, even though it's not your second book, but performance anxiety.
Album. Yeah, no, I am a little bit. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to be honest, I absolutely am. But it's been very hard to kind of find the peace and quiet and clarity you need to come up with a really good, strong new idea. I think also that I always felt that one day, whatever is wrong with the book, it was a very good idea. And I don't know if I'll ever have an idea that's as clear and clean and original as that again. So I won't start the next book until it's something that I can live with for 5 years.
Can you recall when the idea specifically popped into your head? Was it a kind of light bulb over the head moment?
It was my publisher invited me out for dinner and said, you know, any ideas? And I was sort of flanneling around and I had this idea vaguely in the back of my head, but pitched it, you know, and as I was speaking it, as I was describing it, I thought, actually, this might be quite good. So I remember describing it for the first time and thinking that it would be fun to write. But no, there was no eureka moment. I wish that those happened. They've never really happened. My experience has always been that it's much more to do with writing and rewriting and sculpting and revising and constantly going back to an idea.